Shane Beamer is in his 4th season as the head football coach at the University of South Carolina. He was named to that role in December of 2020, becoming the 36th head football coach in Gamecocks history. He owns a 20-18 record at South Carolina. He does have victories over 3 head coaches who've won national championships on their own: Jimbo Fisher, Mack Brown, and Dabo Sweeney. He and I were just comparing notes about our summer reading. He's an avid reader of history, an avid reader in general, an avid reader of history. Eric Larson books being the comparative of notes for us this morning. He's also spent some time getting away, even though being a head coach in the SEC is more than a full-time job. I've seen him zip-lining, diving off a 100-foot platform, and attending a Kenny Chesney concert. He's here with his son Hunter, the head football coach at the University of South Carolina, Shane Beamer.
Thank you for that. It's great to be back here at SEC Media Days for my 4th year. Excited to be here on day 1 and kickstart the week without a doubt. Very grateful still for the position that I'm in as a head football coach in the Southeastern Conference, obviously the premier conference in all of America on the field. And then we see each and every spring in the NFL draft as well. It's a destination conference, and that players and coaches want to be in this league. I always look forward to going to Destin each and every May for our spring meetings and just seeing the magnitude of coaches, football, men's basketball, women's basketball that are in this league, and being able to pick their brains is something I always look forward to. So thankful, as I say every year, and we'll never stop. Thankful for Greg Sankey and his leadership, knowing him through the years from a distance, but then getting a chance to work with him here in the SEC since I got hired in December of 2020. My respect for him has only grown. We'll always be grateful for his leadership that allowed us to have a college football season in 2020. And in this new era of college athletics, certainly glad that he's on our side and leading the way as well. And then welcome Oklahoma and Texas to our conference also. It's really neat being able to see some familiar media members from my time in Norman, and what a great statement about our league that those 2 schools have joined us as well. Appreciate you guys and all you do to promote our game and the sacrifices that you make as well, away from families throughout the season, throughout the year as well. And also a thanks to the SEC staff for putting this on. This is an awesome event, and I haven't been to other media days and other conferences, but I can't imagine it's as well run as this one, and there's so many parts that go into putting this event on, and it's a lot of fun as well. I was literally just upstairs on a bull about 20 minutes ago, and here I am on national television now 20 minutes later talking to you guys also as well. And then before I got started on anything else, certainly just wanted to send my thoughts and prayers to Lane Kiffin and his family on the passing of his dad, Monty, being the son of a coach as well. I know that relationship, and I know it's a tough time for the Kiffin family. I can remember when Lane went to Southern Cal as the head coach and Monty went with him. I wrote Monty Kiffin a letter just saying hello and introducing myself and telling him how much respect I had for him. And I got a phone call back from Monty Kiffin, which I thought was one of the coolest things, and just spent 20 minutes talking to me on the phone. So thinking of the Kiffin family and wish them well going forward as well. Really excited for you guys to get to know the 3 players that I have here with me today: Luke Doty, Alex Boogie Huntley, and Debo Williams. 3 guys that are great examples of everything that's right about college athletics in 2024. You hear all the things that are wrong about college athletics. Those guys are what's right about college athletics and what our program is about as well, which is why I brought them here today. All 3 guys have been a part of college football since 2020. Luke and Boogie are 2 guys that have been a part of the South Carolina program since 2020 and are invested in being Gamecocks. They're guys that have had opportunities to leave, either to transfer to other schools or go to the NFL, and all of them have stayed Most importantly, all three of them are graduates of the University of South Carolina. Luke Doty is a South Carolina native, extremely unselfish, has started games at quarterback, has started games at wide receiver. He's a key special teams player for us as well. Loves the state of South Carolina, and as I mentioned, has already graduated, and he has been on the SEC academic honor roll every year in college. Alex Boogie Huntley, another one from the state of South Carolina, somebody when I was coaching at Oklahoma, we tried to recruit to Norman. Fortunately for us, now at South Carolina, we didn't get him. He's with us. Key player on our defense and has been a really key player for us on special teams also. He also has been on the SEC academic honor roll every year in college. And a returning captain. So we vote on captains at the end of the season at our place. We don't elect permanent captains before the season. We vote on captains at the end of the season. And Boogie was elected a permanent captain by his teammates last season as well, along with Debo Williams. Debo was one of the first people that we recruited when I was hired as the head football coach at South Carolina in 2020. That was in the height of COVID. There wasn't much of a recruiting class at that point. I think there were 11 or 12 guys that were committed that ultimately signed with our program that year, because signing day was about a week after I got hired. So we immediately tried to hit the portal, and Debo was somebody that we connected with. He was at Delaware, transferred down. I remember his very first day in Columbia. He didn't have to be at the facility and in the weight room until 8 a.m., and I walked in the weight room that morning at 6 a.m., and he was in there already by himself just working to get ahead, and he has not slowed down since that day. Last season, 113 tackles, the most by a Gamecock since 2002. Led the SEC last year with 67 solo tackles. He also is a returning captain, but in addition to that, he's voted on by his teammates, our returning winner for defensive MVP, and also a first-team All-SEC linebacker as well. You look at our team right now offensively, obviously a lot of new faces. We've got to replace a lot of production, losing Spencer Rattler, our quarterback, and Xavier Leggett at wide receiver as well. New freshmen and transfers that have come in that will make us better, along with 4 new coaches. Mike Furry at wide receiver, Sean Elliott, our tight ends coach and run game coordinator, Marquell Blackwell, our running backs coach, and then Mike Shula, who we've brought in as a senior analyst and works closely with our quarterbacks as well. I see a lot of eyes that just popped up that don't cover South Carolina regularly that heard that Mike Shula's on our staff. So Mike's made us better along with all of those guys. We did some good things last year on offense. There's no question we have to run the ball better and protect the quarterback better than what we did last season as well. We started 3 true freshmen on our offense last year. 2 on the offensive line. Went through some struggles because of it, but we will be better for it going forward as well. We're young, we're talented, we're hungry as an offense, and the key is going to be how quickly we can come together. We've brought in a lot of production from the transfer portal that will help us do that. Defensively, it's year 4 in this system under Clayton White, our defensive coordinator as well. We've got to continue to grow. We played good defense down the stretch last season. We have to continue to do that as a defense, and we have to continue to be opportunistic on defense as well. We have led the SEC in takeaways since 2021. Being opportunistic, forcing turnovers, we've got to continue to do that and continue to grow from last season as well. No doubt in my mind we will. We're better, we have more talent, we have more depth, and we have more athleticism on all 3 levels of our defense than what we did last season. I mentioned a minute ago that Debo Williams was our winner last year to be our defensive MVP, as voted on by his teammates. Well, the top 6 vote getters for defensive MVP off of our team last year are all back. So we've got a core group of guys that are returning that have played some really good defense for us and a talented group. And then special teams, we have to replace our special teams coordinator, Pete Lembo. Happy for him getting the head coaching job at Buffalo. Brought in an NFL veteran, to me a grand slam hire, in Joe DeCamillis, a guy that has tons of experience in the NFL. Had been a special teams coordinator in the NFL since 1991, coached in 4 Super Bowls, was at the University of Texas last year with Coach Sarkisian, got exposed to the college game, realized that he loved college athletics, had opportunities to go back to the NFL. When we hired him, he had 2 offers on the table to go be a special teams coordinator in the NFL, turned those down to come to Columbia. So he's made us better, being able to return our punter, Kai Kroger, who was with me last year at this event as well, along with our long snapper, Hunter Hunter Rogers will help us, and then excited about the prospects we have at place kicker and the return game also. No matter who's the coordinator, though, obviously that's my background, special teams in so many ways. We'll have to continue to be aggressive and opportunistic on special teams as well. We've led the SEC in block kicks since 2021. Have got to continue to do that as well. Really proud of what our guys are doing academically. If you look at our GPAs by semester, 4 of the 8 highest GPAs in the history of the South Carolina football program have happened in the last 2 years. So our guys are doing great things off the field. 90% graduation success rate in the league, which is 3rd, I believe. We've got 28 players when we kick off against Old Dominion on August 31st that will play that game as graduates from the University of South Carolina. 28, and then last semester we had 7 guys that made a 4.0 GPA, 26 players on the dean's list as well. Excited about what's going on in recruiting right now. Obviously, we've got a lot of really good young talent on our football team. The 2023 signing class was the highest ranked class in over 10 years at South Carolina. And if you look at the last 2 recruiting classes, 23 and 24, ranking-wise, it's the best 2-year ranking, best ranking over a 2-year span since 2012 and 13. It's a great place to recruit to. Great academics, an amazing city, the capital of South Carolina, an amazing state, an unbelievable fan base. That we were sitting there at 2-6 last year after 8 games, came home for 4 straight home games and sold out all 4 of them. Not many teams, I think, are going to do that when we didn't have the season, or the season wasn't going the way we wanted last season, to sell out the last 4 home games. It's a testament to our fan base and how awesome they are. Our long football operations facility that's the best in America, in my mind. Upcoming stadium improvements as well. Our staff and administration, led by our president, Michael Amaritas, our chairman of the board, Thad Westbrook, and our athletics director, Ray Tanner. And then we've seen there's an expectation to win championships at the University of South Carolina, led by Dawn Staley and what Coach Staley and her team have done in women's basketball, winning the national championship this year as well, what Coach Tanner did in baseball, and what many other sports have done as well. And in closing, I know I get every year there's ranked on the opening statements. I think 2 years in a row I've had the longest, so I'm trying not to be that guy this year. But in closing, I'll say this: I really, really, really like our football team going into 2024. Most of you don't. That's okay. When you guys do your picks on Thursday, we'll be picked 14th, 15th, or 16th, I'm sure. But I'm excited about this group. We've got a lot of really good young talent on this football team with veteran leadership. We have over 20 players on our team that are going into their 5th season or more of college football. We talk about leadership. I mentioned we vote for captain. Of the top 12 vote getters on the 23 football team to be a permanent captain, which to me there's no greater honor as an athlete to be voted a permanent captain by your teammate. Of the top 12 vote getters last season, 7 of them are still on our football team. 2 of them are here today with me as well. I understand we have a tough schedule that we get to play. When I look around the schedules in this conference, everybody's got a brutal schedule. That's called competition. That's called playing in the toughest conference in America as well. So if you don't want to play those schedules, then you're in the wrong league, because that's what the SEC is. Our culture is strong. It's great hearing from other players when they transfer in from other schools, when they talk about our football program, when they get here as a transfer as well. And then I realize that the climb isn't always smooth, and I wish it was like this straight to the top. There's going to be bumps in the road, and our players hear me say it all the time. You can't have you can't have growth without some discomfort. And Mike Tomlin, the head coach of the Steelers, who I think the world of and consider a great friend, he has said it, that you can't have your feet in both buckets. You can't have your feet in a comfort bucket and a growth bucket. It doesn't work that way. You've got to be uncomfortable in order to grow. And we certainly had some uncomfortable moments last year as a team, but we also showed throughout the season how strong our culture is. And we grew from those uncomfortable moments last year as well. It's truly year to year. The narrative about our program in 2024 is completely different than what it was in 2023. And I get that. You see that across this league with other schools that are here and becoming here this week as well. But I know this, I love what I do. And if you can't have fun at work, you got a bad job. And I tell our players all the time that it's hard to outwork passionate people. I love what I do. I'm passionate about coaching football, and more importantly, I'm passionate about coaching the University of South Carolina football team as well. The job has changed. There's no question it's different and more demanding than what it was in 2020 when I got hired. But one thing that hasn't changed is how much I love coaching and coaching the South Carolina Gamecocks as well. We have a championship mindset at the University of South Carolina. Make no mistake about it. There's no ceiling at the University of South Carolina as well. Our expectations at South Carolina are to compete for a spot in that 12-team playoff year in, year out. We have players that stayed in this program. They could have gone to other schools. They didn't stay here to be average and go 6-6. We have players that have transferred in from other SEC programs and Power 5 programs. They didn't come here to be average. We have coaches that have come in from other teams that did not come here to be average. We have coaches that stayed, that turned down opportunities to go to the NFL and other Power 5 and SEC programs. They did not stay here to be average. The expectation at our place is to compete for championships and be in the mix for that 12-team playoff. That's what we're working towards each and every day. We got a great group of guys that are doing that back in Columbia right now. Couldn't be more excited about kicking things off on August 31st. You win with people, and you win with great people. And we've got a great group of people in our program, and can't wait to get started with them on the first week of August as well. We're just getting started as a program. I truly believe that, and excited for the year. So with that, any questions?
Thank you, Coach Beamer. If you have a question, please raise your hand. We'll get a microphone to you. Grant, Dylan, and Dinah have the microphone. And again, if you'll please give your name and affiliation before your question. Coach will go over here to my far left on the aisle, just to our left.
James Hale, OKC Sports Radio 105.3 HD1. Good to see you.
Good to see you. One of those familiar Oklahoma faces I was talking about.
Shane, you'll be traveling to Oklahoma this year. And I'm curious how you and your family are looking forward to that. And what do you remember about your time at OU?
Yeah, for me, it's a work trip. My kids are disappointed that it's an early kickoff because they were expecting, hoping to have a full Friday and a full Saturday of seeing all the things that people and places back in Norman. I had a great time there. Got great friends there. Literally just got a text message about an hour ago from Ryan Hibble, the golf coach, telling me that we need to get together as families and figure out the plan for when the family does come to Norman so we can hook up as well. I didn't want to tell him I'm a little busy right now today in Dallas. We'll talk about that after the fact. But very thankful that Coach Riley gave me an opportunity there. I had a great job at the University of Georgia with Kirby and learned so much from him in my time in Athens, but the opportunity to get connected and be with the Oklahoma program was a great opportunity. Went there because of, for a lot of reasons. Joe Castiglione, the athletic director, was one of them as well, to be able to get connected with him, but then went there and just made so many friends for life. I mentioned Ryan Hibble, Zach Selman at Mississippi State, is someone that's a dear friend. Learned a lot. Pretty cool being a part of that tradition, and it'll be a big challenge going back to Norman on that Saturday, but really looking forward to the trip and excited for our fans. Our fans are so excited about going to Norman, Oklahoma. Can't tell you how many of them have come to me and told me they've got their flights booked and what do they need to do, where do they need to go, and it'll be a fun weekend and a work trip for us.
Coach, we're going to go to the far right of the rooms, over to your right.
Okay.
Hey, Coach. Spencer McLaughlin, Locked On Podcast Network. Talk about the quarterback situation going from Spencer Rattler to, I know you haven't officially named a starting quarterback, but Lenora Sellers kind of presumed to be the starting quarterback there. What do you see as what he can bring to the table, and how's that different from what your offense was a year ago? Yeah,
obviously we've got to replace an elite player in Spencer, and I know he's doing great things in New Orleans already and is going to have a long career in the NFL. We certainly are going to look different at the quarterback position with Lenora Sellers and Robbie Ashford both. You're talking about guys that are 240-pound type guys that can run and are able to throw equally as well. So it brings a new dimension to our offense. Those guys have made each other better. Luke Doty, who's here with me today, Luke started games at quarterback back in 2020. Before I was even hired as the head coach, when I was coaching at Oklahoma as well. So we've got experience in that room. We don't have a ton of experience starting at South Carolina, but Robbie's got SEC experience, and Lenore's played in some games last season. But we return a lot of players around those guys, which will help. Starting on the offensive line, a guy like Vershawn Lee, who, because of our injuries on the offensive line last year, he started at center, guard, and tackle on the offensive line. We bring back Vershawn. That'll help a young quarterback, having a veteran offensive line. Ja'Kai Moore, who's been here since 2020, that's played multiple positions on the offensive line. So we've had, obviously, since January to kind of create what this offense is going to look like. We've got a lot of new faces, but as I alluded to a minute ago, it's a young but extremely hungry and talented group.
Coach, we're going to go straight down the middle aisle, about 3/4 of the way back.
Hey, Coach. Dave Myrick, 107.7 The Franchise, Oklahoma City. You're probably in the best spot to answer this, having coached at Oklahoma, now in the SEC. What's the biggest adjustment you think faces Oklahoma jumping to this league?
I think it's a couple things, one on the field and another one off the field. From being in other conferences, and I've coached in multiple leagues in my career, it's the size and the depth and the athleticism that you see on the line of scrimmage every single week in this conference. I can remember being at Oklahoma, coaching tight ends, and you would be getting ready to play most Saturdays, and there may be one or two guys on the opposing defensive line that you really got to be cognizant of. Like, this guy can completely wreck your game if you don't have a plan for him. But then you come into this league, it's not one or two, it's like 6 or 7 every single Saturday on the line of scrimmage. So that's one thing to me that stands out. And then the other part off the field, and it's awesome, is just the venues that you go into in this league. Being able, like, every single Saturday, it's an event in that town. And there's 80, 90, 100,000 people every single Saturday in this league. And there's nothing like it. Just the competition, the pageantry, it's special. It's something that I missed when I was not in this conference and I was coaching in other conferences, and excited that I'm still part of the SEC. And don't get me wrong, like Oklahoma and Texas have played a lot of big-time football games and are 2 big-time programs. But to answer your question, just the difference and what to expect, those are 2 things that stand out to me that I think are a little bit different than other conferences.
Coach, we're going to go straight in front of me, 3 rows back. Barry?
Yeah, Barry Trammell, Tulsa World. Shane, you're at a program that's trying to build and reach the Alabamas and the Georgias. And then they added Oklahoma and Texas, which is 2 more programs that, from my perspective, you got to leap over. How does that make your job tougher? And as a coach, do you say, what the heck are you doing here?
No, I think it's great. It's a testament to Commissioner Sankey and our league that Oklahoma and Texas want to be a part of this conference, for one. Competition is a core value of our program, Barry, and we're all about competing. And you want to compete against the best. You want to coach against the best, and that's what you get to do in the SEC. And I can't spend a ton of time worrying about the other teams in this league. For me, and I know it's cliche, it's doing the very best job I can each and every day for our program and trying to continue to move it forward. Recruiting, player development, our staff, you name it. How do we get better each and every day? And that's all I'm focused on. But I'll say this too, Barry, like, we ain't far off. And we've had some fantastic wins over the last 3 seasons over teams that, when you guys do your predictions, or the media and that people nationwide do their predictions of, okay, here's what we think the 12-team playoff is going to look like this year. There's teams that are considered to be in the mix for that playoff that are teams that we have beaten in our 3 years here as well. So that's the one thing we got to do, is just continue to build and compete and get a little bit better each and every day, and continue to put yourself in the mix for a spot in that playoff. And we're in a conference too, Barry, that the depth of this league is unmatched. So if you're one of the better teams in this conference, you're going to be in the playoff, and we've shown that we have the potential to be that over the last few years.
Okay, we'll stay in the same section on the near aisle, right in the middle.
Brad Crawford, 24/7 Sports. Coach, going back over those off-season narratives that you've mentioned, the negativity outside the top 25, what will it take to get Gamecock football back to that late 2022 scenario?
Yeah, I think just continuing the work. You know, I get it. 5-7 last year, Brad, is not what anybody expected. We were here last year, and we were somewhat of a feel-good story, and some of you guys were picking us to be a dark horse team in the SEC. And we went 5-7, and ultimately that's my responsibility. But I also look at it that we weren't that far away from the narrative being completely different as well. And when the season's over, like every head coach, I sit back and look at everything that we're doing and where do we need to tweak, where do we need to adjust, where do we need to be better. Feel like we've done that, whether it be how we do things in our building each and every day, coaching staff, players we've brought in, players that left our program in some ways as well. And just continue to say, okay, how do we be better? And then realizing that it's in college football, there's more parity than ever. But in this league especially, Brad, like it is a thin line. And I'm not gonna sit here and woulda, coulda, shoulda, in hindsight being 2020, but I can think of 2 or 3 plays off the top of my head that if literally last season we just do what we're supposed to do, we probably win the football game. And that's my responsibility as a head coach because we didn't, and it starts with me. But I know we're not far off, and for us to get back to, you alluded to the 22 season, beating Tennessee and Clemson when they were top 10 teams back-to-back weeks, it starts with having good players, and a lot of guys that were a part of those 2 wins are still in our program. We've got a lot of guys that have come back in 24 because they know that we are better than what we showed last season, and they are, somebody told me earlier that Debo said, we're not hungry, we're starving, and the way they've worked since January has shown me that, you know, and it's we can't sit here and talk about it, we just got to work, but I know that we got the right group of people in our program, and we're very hungry and eager to get going.
We have time for 2 quick ones. We'll start up here in the front. Bob, right in front of us.
Hey, Shane, Bob Holt, Arkansas.
Hey, Bob. Good to see you.
Craig Gazette, how you doing?
Doing great. Hope you are.
I'm good. Rocket Sanders, I know he's had, I guess, shoulder surgery, and I know he had a knee issue at Arkansas. Could you give us an update on him, and what are your expectations for him this season?
Yeah, one of our strength coaches the other day, they said that what we've done with Rocket, or what Rocket's been doing since January, is rocket science as well. I thought that was funnier than I think you guys did as well. But Rocket has come in, you talk about hungry and starving, Rocket's very hungry to get back to the Rocket Sanders of 22. And I think a lot of people have forgotten how talented a running back Rocket Sanders is and the season that he had in 2022. There's no doubt in the 2022 season, the 2 best running backs in this league were Judkins at Ole Miss at the time, I believe, and Rocket Sanders. And he will make our run game better along with the other running backs that we've brought in. But he's done a great job, Bob. He came in January. He had to get healthy. He's worked really, really hard to get healthy since then. It's been a process with our strength and conditioning staff and our training staff. He's shaved 6% of body fat off of his body since February. He's lost a considerable amount of weight. He stayed in Columbia the whole month of May when most of the team had left outside of our offensive line. Our offensive line stayed in May voluntarily. Rocket stayed up there on his own so he could be in ideal shape when our players came back in June, the rest of the team as well. So he's done a great job. I think he's at 228 pounds as of 2 days ago, if I'm not mistaken, and is having a really, really good summer. He's worked closely with, I mentioned our strength coaches, but Jameel Walker, who was his strength coach at Arkansas, Chip Morton, who is a longtime NFL veteran, one of our associate strength coaches, Luke Day, our head strength coach, our training staff, nutrition staff, Rocket. Everyone's had a hand in it, and appreciate our administration giving us the resources that we need to help not just Rocket, but all of our players be their very best each and every season.
Coach, we'll go over to our right for one final question. Over stage right.
Yeah, Coach, Brooks Austin with Dogs Daily. I believe for the first time in the 2024 recruiting class, since perhaps your first, you took more transfers than high school kids. I'm curious if that makes any statement or provides any message about your roster, if any at all.
No, I don't think so. We always want to start with high school recruiting first and foremost. We'll never deviate from that. We had a really good year in my mind from a high school recruiting standpoint. The great thing that will help us this year, as I mentioned last season, we started 5 true freshmen. Well, 3 of those guys didn't even get to Columbia until the summertime, whereas every signee in our recruiting class this past year, all but 3 went through spring practice with us, so that'll help our youth as well. I love the recruiting class that we put together. Maybe number-wise, it wasn't very big, but like I alluded to a minute ago, the last 2 years have been the best 2-year span of recruiting rankings, if you will. The highest ranked recruiting classes in the last 2 years since 2012 as well. And we went head-to-head against some of the best teams in the country and won battles to get guys to South Carolina. You look all across the battles that we won. It was a smaller class, maybe number-wise, and to answer your question about relying on the portal, to me, it's just really where we were. Receiver-wise, we lost a first-round draft pick in Xavier Legette. We had to replace him. We're very young. We needed to get some production, some experience in there. We did that. If you look at our defense last year, defensive line, our top 4 tackles all returned. TJ Sanders, Boogie Huntley, Nick Barrett and Tonka Hemingway, but they got worn down last year because we didn't have a lot of depth. We brought in some transfers that have played in the SEC that will help us be better there. Same thing at linebacker. We basically had a 3-man rotation at linebacker last year. We've added some freshmen that will play for us this year, but we've also added some transfers that have come in from Power 5 schools that'll help us. So really, to answer your question, it's really for us just getting more depth at every position and getting some experience as well at every position. And I like it when you talk about the young talent with the freshmen we brought in, and then you combine it with the experience from the portal that we brought in. It's a really fun group that has done a great job of laying a foundation for not just this year, but for the future as well.
Coach Beamer, thank you for your time this morning.
Okay, thank you guys so much. Have a great week.